Hello, everyone. I'm Marty Murray, Chief Curriculum and Content Architect at Target Test Prep, and with me here today is Dalal. She's a former Target Test Prep user and a person many of us have wanted to hear from since she's mastered the game we all want to play, which is the game of increasing our GMAT scores. As I'm sure most of you know, Dalal achieved a 530-point GMAT score increase, starting at 250 and finishing at 780. So you can see why I'm saying she's mastered the game of increasing her GMAT score, since that's likely the biggest GMAT score increase of all time. So welcome, Dalal. We're excited to have you here and have the opportunity to finally meet you in person and talk with you.
Hi, Marty. Hi, everyone. Wow, when you said it, like she went from 250 to 780. Sometimes I forget just how much effort and time and all of that. So it's, I remember those days and I'm just like, I'm really happy about that. So, and today I'm hoping that, I can inspire and give hope to a lot of people today and a lot of students who are watching us today. So welcome, everybody.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. Yeah, there has to be some reason why you were able to achieve that score increase, and I'm really curious to hear more about it. Before we get started talking about your GMAT journey, maybe you could tell us a little about yourself and your background, partly so we can understand kind of where you were coming from as you were preparing for the GMAT.
Yeah, so I'm from Kuwait. I was born in Kuwait. I grew up in France. I am US educated. I went to school in San Francisco. I did my undergrad in San Francisco. And no, I did not learn English here. I learned English from listening to music and pop music and all of that. So that helped me at that time. My background is in ed tech, entrepreneurship, and technology. And I'm also a professional singer. I make music I make educational music for kids. And I'm an incoming student at Kellogg's MMM program, and that's the MBA and MS from the School of Engineering.
Okay, so you have a lot of different things going on.
Yes.
So, and some of that I'm sure figured into your to what you're able to do with the GMAT.
Right.
So, okay, so now that we got that, some background here, can you tell us a little bit about the beginning of your GMAT journey and what you experienced? I mean, from what I understand, it didn't go that well. How was it?
No, it didn't go well in the beginning because I had no idea what I was doing, right? I didn't do enough research when I first started. I think my ego kind of was, I was like, what is all this, fuss about? I hear my friends, and then that was in 2014. And I was like, I heard my friends, talking about the GMAT because I was planning to go to grad school after I graduated from University of San Francisco. And my friends were all like, the GMAT, oh my God, you cannot beat it. And I was like, are you kidding me? I could beat it, anything. I was like thinking, it's just math, it's just English. And that's kind of what I had in mind, Marty. Like, I was like, well, how, it's math and it's English. Like, I'm good in English and math. Okay, I'll just revise and I'll be fine, right? And then I remember when I took the test the first time, I walked into a center and I took the test, and oh my God. Right. So I actually walked into the test center, Marty, and I thought, I went there actually super confident that I was going to do well, even though
no prep really, right? Just you glanced at a couple books or something.
So at that time, I actually did not really do any research. I just wanted to kind of go. I went into the test center not knowing what I was going to see, because I thought if I was going to study for something, like I needed to know what I was, facing at first. And I think, and I hear from a lot of students, a lot of times they study for the GMAT, but they're so scared of taking a test, right? I went the other route. I took the test first and then I started studying for the GMAT. So I had a really low score at that time. And then I was like, you know what? It's just, I'm pretty sure it's just math and it's just English that I need to kind of, because I saw data sufficiency, all these questions, and I had no idea that there was a type of way of asking these questions. I didn't know. I actually, even after taking the test, I thought all I needed to do was just study math and study English and I'll be fine. So I started with foundations of math. I was like, I started college at a later age. I think I was 26 or 25 at that time. I did not really go the usual route. I didn't go from high school to college. I actually had a car accident, broke my jaw, just a lot of health complications. I was also, kind of with my entrepreneurial spirit, I was kind of like startups and all this stuff. And I was just like, I don't need college at that time, right? And I come from a family where, we have to have like degrees. And I think this is very typical from like countries like Asian countries or Middle Eastern families, very big on like, get a college degree. So I remember when I first started with the GMAT, I was like, I don't remember how to do basic division, Marty. Kid you not. I kid you not. I do not remember how to do basic division. I don't even remember like multiplication table until a specific number. I was like, I could do until 10 because it's easy. You just add a 0, And I was like, that's kind of what I thought. So I think when I did kind of my initial analysis, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do basic grammar, I'll just go back to the basics. And I remember, Marty, at that time, I bought a bunch of books. Like I was just like, my desk was full of books. And I actually started with, kids books, like kids math. And because I needed to remember all this math that I took a long time ago and all this, And again, I want to say, I did not actually take English classes because I was educated in French schools. So I know grammar in French. I know, vocabulary in French. I didn't really know a lot of English stuff. So I didn't have the foundations.
So look at this. Can I just say something right there?
Yes.
I mean, people talk about being a non-native speaker of English. And, it just constantly, I find that if you, like whether your native language is French or whatever it is, you can master this test. So I just want to interject, not that you have.
Right.
And not that you started off doing that, but it is a key point for a lot of people that wonder about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I say this to everyone who's watching and thinks that, you have a disadvantage because you're a non-native, or you think you have a disadvantage because you're a non-native English speaker. I learned English from, listening to music and like all of that stuff and Disney movies at that time. But I did not really study English until I started going to college in the US. I did community college here. And then I did, and here, I mean, I'm currently in Los Angeles, so here in California. But yeah, I did community college here. I did my basic English studies here, and I didn't have any English background before that. So that's what I would say. If you're thinking that just because you don't have, an English background that you might not do well on the GMAT, that's not true at all.
So now you did this prep, right? So now you're reading books, you have this stack of books. So what was the outcome?
The outcome was stress. I was very stressed. I was very overwhelmed. Just Marty, if you look at a book like this big, right? I mean, how does that make you excited to go study? You know what I mean? I mean, maybe some people like that, but not for someone who's just a beginner and like looking at this test like it's a monster. And I'm thinking, oh my God. I mean, I remember having at that time, these thoughts about there is no way that I'm going to be able to go to grad school. The people who went to all these top 10 schools are so much smarter than me. I'm not built for it. That's what I thought at that time. I'm just not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so after doing a lot of this, you ended up scoring 350 on the GMAT?
Yes, and that was my aha moment. That was my real moment. That was, and I
How
scored
was that? Okay, how was that your aha moment?
my that was my aha moment because I saw progress.
That's really interesting.
Yes, that
So, like you scored 250 on your first actual GMAT. Folks, this wasn't even a practice test. This is, this is she actually sat for the actual GMAT and scored 250. Then
yes,
you go
yes.
and you prepare, you read all these books, you put in the time, you do the work, and you score 350. Now, I think a lot of people would have been depressed at that point and said, look, like you said, I'm not built for this, I'm done. I put so much into this, and now I'm at 350. But you're saying you had a different reaction.
I had a very different reaction because I felt that any progress, I was just going to take it in, and that was, for me, that was validation that it's possible and it's doable and it's going to happen, but it's just a matter of right techniques, enough time, practice. And I knew that back then because I saw the progress. I saw the 350. And
That's so interesting.
that just gave me a boost of confidence, Marty. And you know what? When you first start with your journey, you need that boost of confidence. I mean, I talk to students all the time who celebrate, and I tell students all the time, whether you go from like 250 to 260 or 270 or a 250 to 500, you need to celebrate those little moments because that's just telling you that what you're doing is working. You know what I mean? And that's what I
That's
needed at
really
that time.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's really, really interesting. So are you saying that basically having scored 250 and then 350, you were becoming confident that you were going to, score, let's say 700 on the test?
Absolutely. I had, oh my God, I remember, I'm getting emotional right now just thinking about it because I remember at that time I went to my mom and I started crying and I was like, "Oh my God, I scored 350." She started laughing at me. She goes like, "What are you talking about, right? I thought you needed 800." And because I had explained to her the whole test thing, right? And I said, "Mom, I finally know, like I'm not stupid, because for a while, I'm telling you, you start doubting your abilities a lot with this GMAT test, especially if you start very low, because we as humans, we tend to compare ourselves all the time with other people, you know and looking at this, like looking at the GMAT and all the success stories out there, as much as they can be great for you to seek inspiration from, they can also be painful in the beginning, right? Because you look at them and you're like, oh my God, look at this person excited going from 700 to 750, and I'm barely down here.
Right.
And I just felt like I was not able to find, and I went on the GMAT club, and I remember I saw another Kuwaiti student. His name is Mishari, and I saw his story on the GMAT club. I think he went from a 400 to something like that. And I was kind of like seeking inspiration. I really wanted to get inspiration from someone who looks like me, in the sense of like they're at my level and went there. I just wanted to hear that it's doable, right? I just wanted to get that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did that go?
Well, it was interesting. I went on, I went online. I subscribed. I think I went on Reddit. I spent hours and days looking at stories and trying to like DM people. I did the GMAT club. I was just like talking to people everywhere, and I do not remember talking to someone who said, "Hey, I went from," sorry about that, my dog's in the background. "I went from a 200 to something, or 300, or even 400 maybe." I found a few, but I think a lot of people don't really want to talk about them starting low, like at a low point. And when they do, they just feel like, I don't want to put it out there. And this is a message to anyone who's watching. If you're at the 200s or 300s or even 400s, if you're at a low score, put your story out there when you get to a 700, because you will, because it's going to inspire someone who's looking for that story one day. And
Oh,
that's what,
that's so interesting.
yeah.
So you were basically looking, so everywhere you look, you don't see any of these stories. No one even wants to put them up. I mean,
No.
but still you had this confidence. So no story, you're at 350 and you're still confident from the progress. I mean, that's just so these, I mean, these are the type of things that anybody can learn from, whether you're going from 570 to 680 or
Right.
whatever it is, to say like, look, you know, if I've had a guy tell me he was at, I don't know, started working with me, he's in the 400s.
Right.
He gets to 610. He said, I'm so depressed.
No,
Can
send him
you
my
imagine? He
no,
goes from
let's
like
talk.
420 to 610 or whatever it was. And he said, I'm so depressed. I want to score set. And look what's going on. I'm like, what's going on is you're up, you know, whatever it was. You know, maybe it's 150 points or something.
That's huge. That's
It's
huge.
huge.
That's huge. If you're watching Marty's student, listen, that's huge and you should be proud of yourself. And I think that sometimes we tend to forget that any progress is progress, right?
Yeah.
Any progress is progress, and it's with just everything in life. I had a student recently go from a 420 and to 620, and that guy was just so happy because we had this conversation about, listen, you went from 420 to 620, I think 620 or 640. Yes, 420 to 640. And I said, just because, you know, you got to remember that's validation for you that what you're doing, you're going somewhere, you know?
Exactly. And I think that's a big, really key point is that there's two sides to that. One of them is that what you're doing is taking you somewhere. And the other side is if your score isn't going up, don't think it's like it's you. Oh, it's me. It must be me. You know, I can't do this. I'm not cut out for this. Look at what you're doing to prepare.
It's not you, but it might be something you're doing that's not taking you to that goal, right? So
Absolutely.
it's it might be, you know, and it's more likely actually your habits, how you're viewing that test, you know, the relationship that you have with that test, right? So
Yeah.
it's very important to learn how to like this test. And let me tell you, Marty, oh my God, this GMAT test changed my life and the way I view a lot of things. You know, it taught me patience. It gave me just confidence in knowing that I can beat anything I set my mind to, and it just gave me a lot of patience, you know. And you need to learn how to like this test, you know, because as long as you're going to see this test as like some hurdle or some mountain that you're not going to be able to climb, your brain is always going to have this wall, and you need to put down that wall and just say, you know what, it's just a test, right? And I know that a lot of students are looking at us right now thinking that, oh my God, Dalal, of course you're going to say that. You went to 780, you know, like, of course this, of course that. But guess what? I was in your shoes one day and I thought the same, you know, at that time. It took me a while to realize that it's just a test. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of like really just thinking about what are the right methods to use in terms of like rules when it comes to, you know, quant or when it comes to verbal. What are the right resources that work for me? And that's very important. That's a key point that we could talk about later, and just really trusting that process, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and of course building healthy habits, of course.
Yeah, those healthy habits are going to make a big, big difference. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I really think you also, you know, sometimes talk about just understanding what the test is testing. And that's another big thing that you had to kind of, I mean, it sounds like that was another big thing that sort of became a realization for you. Like you started off, okay, this is basic English and grammar, and you're studying for a basic English and math test, and now you're not making that much progress. So at a certain point, you had to kind of click. Wait, this is a reasoning test. It's a little bit more of a game or a puzzle. So I have to go
Yeah,
beyond studying these you know specific facts and rules or whatever, right? So that I guess that was another one of your key a key thing
absolutely.
that anybody can benefit from.
That was definitely another aha moment for me is when I started thinking, you know what, like, you know, I sat down with myself and I was like, why is this test, I asked my question. I was like, why is this test so hard? Right? Is it because of the way that I view it? Is it because, like, I don't know, why is it hard, right? And maybe if I understood what the test makers are trying to test me on, right? Maybe if I try to understand what they're trying to test me on, like, for example, I'll just give you an example. Business schools want to know that you're a, you know, great leader and you have potential, right? And they want to know that you have attention to detail. They want to know that you can work under pressure. They want to know all this stuff. And I thought, right, since there's so much emphasis on this GMAT test, right, it means that it matters a lot to business schools. And this test actually shows that you have the leadership skills that they're looking for, like business schools are looking for. And I was like, wait, test makers are probably trying to trick me into not seeing details about the sentences, right? So I started automatically, Marty, I started looking at like, I started even paying more attention to sentence correction questions. Like I'm looking at the question and I pay extreme attention to the little details. And when I started thinking that way, I'm like, you know what? If I knew what they were testing me on, like logical reasoning, critical reasoning, all these things, I would kind of try to strengthen those skills in order for me to be able to kind of look at the questions from a different perspective. It's not just math or English, it's more than
Right.
it's more than
That's so interesting. I
yeah,
mean, so, it's interesting how the story is all coming together, because it's easy to read and see that somebody scored, this score, and then she drove her score up to
yeah,
this level. And yet, like, okay, that's all well and good. How cool. That's all. Congratulations. You know what I
yeah,
mean? But
yeah,
seeing that it's not an accident that this happened, right? That you achieved this.
yeah,
You have these realizations one at a time, whether it was gaining the confidence that you could do it because you saw progress, and taking that, like even having the sense to say, wait a minute, if I can go up 100 points, I can go up another 100 points. I only have to do that a few more times and I'm at my score goal, or just enough, things clicking one at a time. So this is the
yeah,
kind of story. I mean, and this applies to pretty much everybody,
yeah.
that things have to click one at a time, right?
Yes, and I think it's very important to sometimes while you're going through this journey is to pause and reflect. Reflect, right? Take a minute and say, what have I been doing right, right? What can I celebrate? What have I been doing wrong? What can I improve? Right? And for me, I did a lot of self-reflection. One thing that excuse me, one thing that really clicked with me, I remember at that time, I think I saw I think it was what I remember. I think it was a TTP thing that I saw. The whole eliminating right answers to get to the right answer, to get to the correct answer. I used to look at the questions, Marty, as like, oh my God, I'm just gonna read it and like try to find the right answer, right?
Mm,
And now, and now and back then, like a few years ago, I actually started looking at the questions like, I want to find a clear reason to remove you because it's going to be one big weight off my shoulders because I can move on to the next one.
mm,
And it's a shift in kind of mindset of the way that you look at the questions, right? I
right,
mean, it's I used to, like I said, I used to look at the questions and be like, oh my God, this must be the right one because it sounds like it or whatever, right?
right.
But it's not the right way to do that, right? And you have to have clear reason to, you have to actually just look for reason to eliminate, right? Look for reason to eliminate, and then you're down to 2 3 and hopefully 1. And that must be the right answer.
Yeah. I mean, so there's just another building block. So we're talking about the big picture building blocks and the little picture building blocks, right? And every time you've, found another one of these things, your score went up,
Yep, yep,
right? I mean, that's what we're all doing.
absolutely.
So as far as math and dedication was the other thing. So now what kept you going? I mean, like you're at 250, 350. Okay, great. Oh, I saw progress.
Right.
But clearly, at times, you must have felt kind of like, I don't know if I should be doing this at all. I mean, what kind of kept you going?
What kept me going is how strong like my why was to wanting to go to business school. I really wanted to go to business school for a lot of personal reasons. One of them is I wanted to fulfill my father's promise that and that's just something personal to me, right? But thinking about all those personal reasons, it just kept me, wanting to just push even harder. And honestly, it's just that little hope, right? Of seeing a little bit of progress.
Right.
And I knew that because I saw progress, it was just a matter of time. And I keep telling myself that it's just a matter of time. And I always try to attach that little progress thing with like a weight loss journey because I went through it, and I was like, if I eat good every day and I work out every day, eventually I'll lose this, I'll lose this. And then by the end of the month, I lost all of this, right? Or I reached that goal that I want to reach.
Yeah.
And that was the same way that I perceive the GMAT is, I make a little bit of progress today. Next week, I get a, like realization, I get an aha moment. The week after, a little bit of progress. And even though it's overwhelming because it's extensive, the GMAT journey is just, it's a lot to take in, right? It's a lot of resources, it's a lot of reading, it's a lot of learning, but that hope of like seeing the progress was what kept me going. Seeing the progress really was what kept me going. Absolutely.
Right. Like you just see just enough, right? And you got the motivation pushing you along at the same time. So you're seeing the progress. You're like, I really want to do this, and it looks like I can do it.
Absolutely.
So I might as well keep going.
Yeah, and the validation of like, I'm not, I'm not like stupid. I'm not like,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because you doubt yourself, Marty. That's
Absolutely.
what happens. That's what happens with everyone who starts really low. I can't tell you how many times students come to me and they're like, I don't think, I'm built for this. I don't think, and I'm trying, right? And you have to come to the realization that, listen, it's learnable, right? You can learn it. It's not, it's not that you're born with this, right? And I think we talked about that one time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't, you're born, you learned how to crawl, right? It's just, you learn things, and that's just how you evolve as a person.
Yeah, I think that's another big thing because, we talk about making progress, but before you start, before you see progress, how can you be confident that you can do this? And I think the answer is, well, you have learned other things. I mean, you said something about before, you said something about there was some other thing that you learned right before you got involved in the GMAT. You're like, wait a minute.
Yes.
I can't learn. Or maybe after you, what was that?
Yes. The other, I'm trying to remember. I remember. Yeah. Oh, yes. So it was, I think it was like with, I think it was something with like just life skills, right? Like cooking and things like that, and like things that are really sometimes tough on me. And when I feel that I'm learning by reading or practicing, or it's just that aha moment again that came to me. And there were a few ones during my journey, but it was that I'm learning. And I think once I started like put a pen, paper and pen in front of me, and I started doing the questions and I started getting all those questions right, I just felt like, what, all I needed to do was just keep doing what I'm doing repeatedly, and it might take me a year, it might take me 10 years, it might take me, but eventually I'll get there. And that's kind of what, that's really what hit me at that time.
That is so key. That is so cool.
Yes. It is learning.
I mean, that's exactly. It's so interesting. If it's working and I keep doing it, it's going to keep working. I'm going to just keep seeing the results,
Yes. And if it's not working, Marty, if it's not working, it's, you need to stop and reassess what you're doing, right? So,
yeah.
so perhaps it could be the resource that you're learning from. Maybe you're getting, and that's one thing that I was doing wrong when I first started. I was studying from, I think, 3 or 4 books. And yes, you can have, and I'll just give you a quick example. You can have, right, you can study, for example, you can study modifiers, right? But from 4 different teachers, everyone's going to teach it to you differently, right? So that might lead to confusion, and that might lead to just like, and you don't need that on the GMAT. You just need to stay focused, and you need to like trust, the thing that's, if it works for you a little bit, keep going, right? With that resource that you're using, right? And for me, after, a lot of trial and errors, it was definitely TTP.
So how did you find target? Okay. So how did this happen then? Like what got you into target test prep?
Well, wow, I love Target Test Prep so much. It has changed my life. Like I kid you not, it has changed my life. The first thing that Target Test Prep taught me is to be patient, because the software is it requires time, right?
Mm,
So I just yeah. So how I found about Target Test Prep. So I was subscribed. I think I joined a what is it? A forum on Reddit called MBA or something. I don't remember at that time. And I got a notification over email, and I signed up for the notifications, and I got a notification over email. I think someone was asking, is TTP worth, you know, all the whatever, right? The hype or something like that. And I was like, wait, hype and TTP? And I had no idea what like TTP was at that time. And I was like, TTP? I think my curiosity was like, what the hell is TTP? And why is there hype over TTP? What is there hype? I need to know. And I clicked on it. And I remember at that time I was really busy, but I read, and someone was like, is T2. And I read like the comments, and everyone was just talking about TTP like it's the best thing in the world, and how it took them from here and there and all of that. And I was like, okay, I'm struggling with the GMAT. Hello, who are you? So I clicked on it, and I found out about TTP through that. And I
mm,
joined, I think the trial or something. And I was hooked. And I remember when I first found out about TTP, I was like, I do not need anything else. I just need to stay with that, because I tried it and it worked for me. You know,
mm,
it worked for me for a lot of reasons. And I was like, you know what? It worked for me. I'm going to come back to that mindset where I first started, that if it's giving you a little bit of progress, keep at it, keep going.
mhm.
And I went with it, and yeah, I trusted TTP with everything. It was worth it.
That worked out.
I know.
So, I mean, but okay, so what about it? Like, what about it was helpful? What about it was different? Like what was useful? What was,
Yeah. Yeah, very good question. So when I first started with TTP, I think the one thing that got me hooked with TTP was the structure.
mm,
I'm just obsessed with planning. And I remember at that time I had an Excel sheet, and I called it the GMAT knockout planner. And I had like every hour of the day, I used to study like, 3 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, 1 hour in the evening. And I did that on purpose, right? Because I was kind of measuring my level of energy, and how, present I was, and all of that. So when I first started with TTP, I had, all the sheets, and I had all of that and all these books. And I remember I couldn't really keep up with the books, because I was doing a little bit of this from here, a little bit of that from here. And it was just, that alone was too much, right? And then having to even have a plan for that, because, with all the resources that you see out there, whether they're books or online, Marty, you get overwhelmed, right? It's like
mhm.
it's like a full-time job on top of having to study for the GMAT, right? And
Yeah.
for me, I just felt like the structure of TTP, the way that they had the plan, eliminated that stress, right? It just took away all that stress for me of like having to every single day asking myself, what am I going to do today, right? Oh, okay, I finished, modifiers. What am I going to start tomorrow, it's
Mhm.
it's kind of like really asking yourself every day, what am I going to eat today? It's the most stressful question ever. Right? What am I going to cook today? Right? I don't want to think about what to cook. I just want to focus on eating. And I think with TTP, that was one aspect that got me hooked in the beginning. And then I
Interesting.
started, of course, there's a lot of other, features on TTP that helped me. The video explanations were great, because I felt like TTP, I remember when I first started like reading everything, it actually felt like someone was kind of talking to me. It felt very personal.
Mhm.
And I think with the GMAT journey, you tend to feel very lonely and just like alone, and, all of that. And I felt like with TTP, and I remember a lot of times, and you guys did a really good job, you know, doing like, okay, so now that we're done with this, let's talk about this. And I'm like, oh my God, is there like someone in the so it just really felt very personal. And I think
Mhm.
I wanted that. And I did not want to go through the process of having really a teacher at that time. I just wanted to do it on my own pace,
Mhm.
which is very challenging because you have to stay consistent and you have to show up, you know? So it's very challenging to do that. But I think with TTP, you guys made it a lot easier for someone to just show up and just do the work. Don't worry about the structure. Don't worry
That's
about all of
awesome.
that. Just show up, do the work, and trust us. And
Mhm.
I felt that's how I felt with TTP. I just felt like there was this kind of like, okay, we're holding your hand. Just trust us. Just put in the work, right? Just put in the work and you're going to be fine.
That's so interesting. So showing up is definitely key.
Oh,
Definitely
absolutely.
key. And then having the ability to just show up and things are going to work,
Oh,
I
yeah.
just took it to the next level.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And of course, like once you start seeing that, this software is working for you, or this book is working for you, for me, it was TTP, you just need to trust that, this is going to take you to where you want to go. Because again, we go back a little bit of progress, it means that it's working.
Mhm.
And of course, you guys, you guys, Marty, you guys did a great job at like being accessible. I remember like asking questions. Everyone was always there. The chat feature was great. For me, one big thing that has also helped me was the active review sheets. I printed those, and I think for me, it was it was kind of like testing my memory on everything
Mhm.
that I'm reading, because every time I read, I was like, okay, now I need to remember what I read, and I'm just going to write it on the active review sheet boxes and
Mhm.
write it in a way that I understand it, right? In a very simple way that I understand it. And I
Right.
just keep moving. And that was always the active review sheets were always kind of my go to whenever I wanted to review something, because as you progress with the course, you might a little bit need a little bit of a refresher. And instead of having to go through, the course all over again, or the mission, I think at that time they were called modules. I don't remember what they were called at that time.
Mm.
But yeah, so instead of having to go through all of that again, you have your kind of flashcards in an active review sheet kind of format. So that was helpful for me as well.
That's all very cool. So, and I mean, once again, you're talking about the courses there, but also your sort of diligence in using the course. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think that's just the big message I'm getting is that you were being super thorough, whether it was the active review sheets, the way you're reviewing, or the way you're using the course, the way you're thinking about it, the way you're reflecting, all this stuff being super thorough added up over time, and you got to your score goal. I mean, so how did it feel? By the way, how did it feel? How many? You took the test and like a couple more times, but before you got to 780, or no, you just went straight from 350 780.
Oh no, I did a lot of mocks, everything you can ever imagine. And then I realized that instead of having to go, to the real test, I needed to just master whatever it is that I was doing. And I was never
No
content with
kidding.
70. I was never content with 70%. Like 80%, I don't want that, right?
That's so
Because
interesting.
yeah, because I had my goal was a 750. I
Mhm.
manifested a 750 because
Okay.
this is funny, but 5 is my lucky number for a lot of reasons. And I was like, I want a 750. So I had on my wall, I remember I I hung on my wall. I was like 755. And I know that's not possible, but I had 2 5 just so I can get more excited.
Okay.
And I put 755 one day and I signed and whatever, and I had it everywhere, and I manifested a 750. But
Hmm.
I because I wanted that high score, I realized that, you can't just because sometimes you look at these, softwares, with TTP or any other software, you're like, oh my God, I don't really want to go through it. You just want to kind of do it quickly, Marty. You just kind of want
Hmm.
to do it quickly.
Yeah.
And I think if you're doing that and you're watching us right now, please don't do that. Please don't do that, right? You need to stop and practice everything where you're at, And if you want a really high score, you need to aim for a 90%, 80, 90%, even in hard level questions, right? I was never content. I never settled for 70% for me was like, no, there's something wrong. I need to go back, right? And I know you guys have like that, meter where it's like, okay, it's fine. But for me, I wanted more. I guess I was, yeah.
I think that's really key too.
Yes.
It's really key to, and I guess the question that comes to mind, right, is if you miss a question and like even in the hard ones, let's say you get 70% correct. Well, what's the difference between the ones you didn't get and the ones you did get? And why not find that difference
Yeah.
and get more of them correct? But also, this is once again here we go, another reason. Like
Mm-hmm.
someone said earlier before we started, someone saying, is this real? Did someone really do this? It's just like a made up thing come up with, that some test prep company came up with. But
Oh,
you can see that it's only logical that if you take these steps, that if you take certain steps, anybody can do this, right? Anybody who is thorough and sees the progress and does all these other, reflects, can do this. So you can create your own. What you're showing everybody is that they can all create their own stories.
yes. And Marty, like with I remember like the questions that I used to get wrong. So first of all, it's very important to spend a lot of time on your errors, right? Most of the time, and when I got a question wrong, it's because I would say 90% of the time, it's because I did not pay attention,
Mm,
and I didn't pay attention. For me, it was a lot of it was not paying attention, or I was fast, or I was just kind of like excited and I was like, oh, I know this one, right?
yeah,
And the rule is with the GMAT is if it's too easy, that's not good. That's not
yeah, so
good.
true. Especially if you're scoring high, you're like, that was too easy.
Yeah,
The
right.
right answers look wrong and the wrong answers look right. So if it's that obvious, I mean, sometimes it is, that easy.
Yes. Well, I mean, I
But
guess
I
if
know I get what you're saying.
yes, I guess if you have mastered, I mean, I'm speaking to an 800 level rock star, so of course, it's easy for you. Uh, but like I'm saying, for me, it was most of the time. It was I would say like 80 to 90%. It's like not paying attention to the details,
That's so interesting.
and I would say 10 to 20% was maybe not remembering the rule or the way to do it, or just like
Hmm.
so like, oh, I don't remember like restricted modifier, or oh my god, how did I not see that, right? Dependent clause, whatever. So you need to pay attention. And I remember, I remember when I was taking a mock test one time and I looked at my errors, they were as simple as like punctuation stuff. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
so even
that's
that
so
little
interesting.
even that little thing matters, and that's why you need to pay, because the GMAT question, especially with sentence correction, I found, is when you read, it's not just about knowing the rules, it's also about logical reasoning, right? It's like,
Hmm.
does it make sense? Am I
Okay.
understanding what the author is trying to convey? Like, is that what the author is trying to convey? And for me, when I first started, I was just going off rules, and I actually did not really know how to, have logical reasoning. I think the GMAT, and of course TTP kind of, made that skill a lot better. Um,
That's interesting.
yeah, the logical reasoning part.
So would you say that I mean, so if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that you've developed the skill, this carryover skill at this point for the logical reasoning?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, 100%. And I remember one example that, it's always in my head. If you remember the dog I think the sentence in the dog in a
Yeah.
speedo or something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was like, oh, it doesn't make sense that, dog in a speedo. So I was like, oh my God, yes. So I always remember that, and that example always makes me laugh. But now I look at the writing and even emails. When I write emails, I'm like, wait, and I do it a little bit too much right now.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah,
am.
we're all a little more nervous about our emails after sentence correction. You
I
look
think
back at things you wrote before, you're like, oh,
oh my
not
God.
that anybody noticed. Well, you know.
No, yeah, it is. And I think and one of the most intimidating experiences when I email you guys or send you messages, I'm like, oh my God, I'm emailing Scott or Marty. Oh my God. I have to perfect everything.
Oh man. You
But
know, I remember for me too, like when I was doing critical reasoning, when I first learned it, I had a similar aha moment where, at first the questions weren't clicking for me. Okay, you're getting some correct. And then finally click, oh, this is how this works. And I think that's another thing that really, drives your score up is having those aha moments. And if your score isn't going up, then you have to figure out, well, what aha moments am I not having,
yeah, as much as you need to pay attention to the details and the micro level, like look at things from a micro level perspective, you need to also look at things from a macro level perspective, and think, what is it that they're trying to say? What are they trying to test me on? What is this question trying, especially with like reading comprehension. Oh my God, I saw that a lot actually, which is, connecting all the passages together and doing all of that. So yes, absolutely. A lot of aha moments throughout the journey. Absolutely.
Interesting. You said something about connection. I thought you mentioned this the other day. Maybe this would be interesting to people too, because I think the GMAT is really about connecting things to a large degree.
Yes.
So maybe that'll be useful to people too, just to hear a little more about that.
Yes. So the reading comprehension section for me was actually one of the most challenging ones. Because I'm not a good reader. And I realized I'm not a good reader after doing the GMAT reading comprehension, because I would read things and I think in my head back then I'm reading and I'm just like, okay, I'm reading, the page, whatever. But I realized with like the reading comprehension section is you have to be able, in order for you to be able to understand what this whole passage is saying, you have to be able to connect every single sentence with the next one and connect the paragraphs to each other, right?
Mm.
And a lot of times I found myself as I was developing, that skill, I found myself actually even hiding the next paragraph, right? I just do this, I hide it. And then I'm like, wait, what is the next paragraph supposed to say? I need to assume that, right? Because they just explained this, they just explained that. So now, of course, they're going to give me examples, or of course, they're going to explain why this happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with time, I realized, oh my God, like, they're not as hard as I thought they were, because I'm developing that skill of connecting things together. And by the time that I have done all this kind of, I broke down everything and I connected everything, I found myself to have answered the questions, in on the GMAT test before even going and looking at the questions,
Right.
That's
That's
helped me.
so interesting.
That has helped me a lot.
Yeah, and I would think, I mean, isn't the GMAT like, I would think that, do you think that maybe even without realizing you were also teaching yourself how to answer the other questions? Because I would say that the GMAT in general is about connecting, whether you're doing a quant question
Absolutely.
where you have to connect, wait a minute, I see this difference of squares, so how's that connected to this other side of the equation? Or if you're doing a
Absolutely.
critical reasoning, right, or sentence correction, you're really connecting the non-underlined portion to the underlined portion, or the subject to the
Oh
verb,
my God.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This ability to look at things really deep and in a detailed way, and then kind of going, back and just looking at things from a bigger perspective and connecting things together, definitely, I would say it has contributed to my score. I would say definitely.
Okay.
um yeah, because of course it just makes things a lot easier, right? And one thing that has helped me as well, the other thing that has helped me is simplifying things for myself. I used to simplify a lot.
Right.
I used to simplify like oh my God. I used to look at the questions and and whatever it is that I needed to do, whether it's arrows or putting one letter or putting a number or drawing something really quickly, just for me to be able to look at this big paragraph in like little visual things. that would help me, right? As someone who's
So you're saying you would simplify the pretty much everything you were simplifying?
right. I did that a lot with quant, and I did
Mm-hmm.
that a lot um, with the reading comprehension and critical reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
I also I did that to some extent with the sentence correction when I look at a question, like I eliminated a lot of times the prepositional phrases, and I call that, a lot of times, like in sentences when they put the subject, right, and then the verb is there, and then there's a lot of stuff in the middle, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, a lot of times, I mean, I used to see a lot of this stuff in the middle as a whisper voice, right? And I call this the whisper voice because
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like someone telling you, this person who does this, who does that, who's here, who's that, is right at the end. And I'm
Yeah,
like, and I call this the whisper voice because it's trying, and I think in my head, I'm thinking it's trying to distract me from looking at where the subject and the verb, are. So
right.
so I used to do that a lot. I used to make that connection a lot.
Mm-hmm. So
Um,
yeah, so that is another huge takeaway. Is a lot of this is about simplifying what you're looking at. I mean, we have to do it in DS, reading comp,
yeah.
critical reasoning. What is the simple thing going on here, right? And
Yep.
I mean, I know myself, even today, after all these years of doing this stuff, I can still look at the question and go, "Oh no, don't make me do this." And then you have to look at it and go, "Well, let me simplify this. What is it? What's really going on here?"
Especially the scientific ones. Oh my God, I I had a few of those on my and I do not miss them. Let me tell you, um, the scientific ones are just very heavy,
Mm-hmm.
and I think one of the mistakes that I used to do when I first started is spend time trying to understand what this thing is saying. Right? I mean, the word. I mean, they're doing this to distract you. They're doing this to take you away from what this whole passage is about. All you need to know is that this is a star, and you don't need to know what this means, the whole thing. And if you can figure out that this entire big name, like scientific or whatever name, it's going back to like a medical, like a disease or whatever, like stars and astronomical kind of passages or whatever, scientific passages. If you can figure that out, then just name it star one, name the other one star two, right? And that's how I used to simplify things on myself. I used to just like do that with scientific passages and paragraphs. And then I'm like, oh my God. So all of this meant just these little tiny things. So much easier. So much
Right.
easier, right?
Yeah.
And then I always try to ask myself, Marty, when I look at the passages and paragraphs, I'm always thinking, what is the author like? Is the author like against this person? Are they with their idea? Like I always ask that question at the end of a passage, right? Are they
Mm-hmm.
with, are they against? Because they do ask you, like a lot of times, what is the author, blah, 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 right? Even though they haven't mentioned the author at all in there, and you're kind of seeing other characters in the passage, but
Yeah.
it kind and then right. So just doing that pre-thinking before looking at that, right? The
Mm-hmm.
questions, it really helps you a lot.
That's pretty
The
cool. Yeah,
positioning of
really.
the author, the positioning
Yeah,
of the author. Yeah.
yeah, really getting that simple story and the basic idea. What is this author up to?
Absolutely.
And really, once again, applying it even applies in the critical reasoning question or whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
Where how can you get this to a digestible form? What is really going on here?
Yeah.
So now, I guess my final question, or possibly, is my final question is, how did it feel to see that? I mean, you took the test in a test center.
No, I
How did
didn't.
it feel? How did it feel to see that score? I mean, after all this.
Yeah. It just it didn't feel real. It really didn't feel real. It felt like, I mean, I know I was doing well because prior to that I was doing a lot of chapter tests, and I was getting 90% and above, and I was getting really good results. But I don't know. I think it felt incredible. I cried, I cried, and
For real?
oh my God.
Absolutely.
Oh, I cried. I did, I didn't believe it, and it just boosted my confidence level because remember, Marty, I don't have the greatest GPA in the world, considering if you want to compare me to all the other competitive applicants out there, 3.7, 3 point whatever. I don't come from an engineering background. I don't, I don't have, like, I'm an older applicant. I'm 35 right now, So I had all these things that just really put me down, and I just didn't really see hope why schools would kind of look at me other than, okay, yeah, I have a great story and, I bring diversity to the school, right? But then academically, can I prove academically that I can, can I prove that I can academically handle the work, right? Handle the work academically at the school. And I thought that this GMAT score was going to boost my chances. And it just gave me, I remember when I saw that, I felt so confident. And I think the first thing that I wanted to do was reach out to you guys and say thank you, because you've changed my life. You have completely changed my life. The GMAT test and just doing it through TTP, I always say TTP has taught me to be very patient, because it really just breaks down everything, right? And if you're someone who is impatient, you're going to learn how to be patient. Right? It
Right.
just breaks everything down, but it's to the benefit of the student, right? Because think about it, it's not only the GMAT test that you're going to be facing, it's actually business school. It's becoming a leader. It's going to these big companies out there where you're going to hold leadership positions, and you're going to have to do a lot of this stuff, and it always takes you back to the GMAT. So I felt great. I felt emotional. And I felt very confident. And I think I remember at that time, I was like, oh my God, business schools better watch out. That's what I felt. So 780, yeah.
Here you come too.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, and I want to say this, and I think being also a woman, right, it just made me feel a lot also more, it gave me a lot more confidence, because my entire life I've always felt like I was, even in my career, it was always like male dominated. And
Mm.
the GMAT, I feel in a lot of ways it's also male dominated, and I just felt like, oh my God, right? So
Not anymore.
I felt very proud of myself, very proud of myself. I'm not
That's
seeing
terrific.
I'm not seeing the comments, by the way, but I
I
hope.
know. I'm looking to see if we have any questions that came in real quick. But that was yeah, that's pretty neat, And I
Yeah.
think I remember when we got a message from you. I was
Yeah.
like, wait, what? Scott, somebody said she scored 250 and now she scored, wait, what? She scored 780. Just what a progress, what a process,
Yeah.
and what a result.
Yeah. I think I'm just curious to hear, how did you feel when you saw that 800?
It's funny. I was so like intense when I was taking the test that I didn't even look. I clicked right past the score screen. And it was
No.
only, I took it at the test center, and it was only when I got to the front, the guy handed me the sheet. I was like, ooh, that's pretty cool. And then there was a blizzard. I had ridden a bike like 12, 15 miles to the test center. I
Wow.
walked out, there was a blizzard. There was already like a foot of snow on the ground or
Oh
something.
my
And
God.
it took me 4 hours to get home. And you know what? I had that energy from taking the test, from seeing my score to get me the whole day.
The blizzard happened on your way there?
It happened while I was taking the test. It was a beautiful day.
Okay.
Beautiful day. I go
Okay.
in the test center. 4 hours later, I come out, and there was literally a blizzard. Cars are going sideways and everything.
Well, the sky is celebrating.
I guess so.
Yeah,
So yeah, and it's so. I
right.
mean, that's what if you put in the time and you do, and you keep finding your why and what works, and using. You were saying, you just keep pulling different levers. It can be trial and error too. If it's not working, then something has to be adjusted, and you keep making
Absolutely.
these changes, and you keep persisting, and you
Absolutely.
get to your goal, and it just shows. It's so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? It doesn't hurt to get motivation from a study buddy. That helped me as well. I found another girl who was doing TTP at the same time that I was doing it. We studied together for accountability purposes. you know. It doesn't also hurt to find someone to help you as a tutor if something is not kind of clicking with you, you know. I don't think you will need it when it comes to just doing just going through TTP, but it really doesn't hurt, right? To have an accountability buddy and things like that. I think that was also something that really motivated me to kind of just proceed with the GMAT, is when I found someone who was also doing TTP like me, and we were kind of in the same level, and we studied together, and we helped each other, you know. So
Mhm.
it was very helpful. But yeah.
So to wrap up, why don't we answer? We have a few questions. We're going a little over time, but we could take a few minutes and answer a couple of these questions that came in.
Okay.
How are your mock, your practice tests? Like, how did you score on those? Any insights you could give anybody?
Yeah, so I would say that the mocks are not a clear indication of where you stand when it comes to the real test. And I think one of the reasons is because, uh, you know, uh, um, it's because when you're like in front of the test, there's a lot of factors, and one of them is test anxiety, and that's real, you know. So you could actually score at a mock, like you could get a 700 and then go to the real test. And I've had a few people tell me that, right? They're like, I can't believe I scored great on a mock, right? And then I go to the test and I score 600 something. I recently had someone actually from Thailand tell me that he did a 720 and then on a mock, and then took the real test and he scored 650, and he was very disappointed. But it's because there's other factors, right? There's like test anxiety, there's all of these things. It's just when the real thing happens is very different, Marty, like because the clock is ticking and you have 2 minutes per question and all of that. So for me, I took a lot of mocks. I actually did every single mock from every company you can imagine. I for it was really just the reason why I did that. It wasn't because I wanted to see my score at the end. It was really just familiarizing myself with the 4 hour process, with the sitting down in front of the test, with going through these questions and timing myself, right? So I
Hmm.
think for me, it was more like it was real practice, more so than actually, oh, like, am I at like 700 level? Am I ready to take the test? It wasn't like that. It was just like trying to familiarize myself with the entire process.
Yeah, so there's another success formula as well, really to get used to. And people, sometimes talk about the third party tests
Yeah,
and they're like, oh, it doesn't give me the right score. And I always say, look, it doesn't matter if it gives you score 80 points below what you normally score. You're
right.
getting used to handling that thing of pushing the start button and spending the next 3 hours just coming up with answers as fast as you can.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know what? Just having to sit down, being focused for 3, 4 hours is not easy, and what you're doing. Think about it this way: what you're doing right now is, if you're taking the mock test, you're just trying to familiarize yourself with the process. Don't go to the mock test thinking that, you know because of this score, I'm ready to take the test, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
Or not, or because of the score,
I'm
I'm
not.
devastated. I'm never gonna.
Absolutely.
It's
I think I remember a few mock tests. I was like, I was going, it was driving me crazy, right? I was like going 600 and then 500. And I was like, what? Like, how? Like, I thought I was doing good.
right. I mean, we hear that so many times from so many people that their scores. Oh man, what happened? So it's
Yeah.
once again just bouncing back, continuing on, driving it up, and just making it happen.
Yeah, I think the best thing for you to do is just to take everything one step at a time when it comes to, like, master what you're studying right now, master it before moving on to the next thing. And if
Mhm.
you master it, that confidence is just, it's surreal. Like, all you need
Right.
is confidence, in a way that when you see a question, you don't panic, because that's what happens most of the time. We look at questions and we panic, you know, and you want to have that level of confidence where you look at questions, you're like, oh, bring it on.
Yeah, exactly. That's total. That's what you do. And really, I totally agree. And
And
it's
this
something
comes
about if you master one thing at a time, eventually you master the whole test, right?
yes,
And then you have that confidence from question to question to question. And if you don't have that confidence,
absolutely,
it just means you just haven't mastered that particular thing. And
yeah, if you go into the test and you're kind of, I mean, sometimes, it's an emotional roller coaster. So before the test, you get these feelings of like, am I ready? Am I not? Am I ready? Am I not? But, pay attention to your feelings and how you feel when you do these mock tests, right? Are you stressed? Are you excited? Are you confident that you're going to be fine? And if you're not really 100% confident, go back and do more practice.
mm-hmm.
And that was one thing that I found on Team TV that drove me crazy. It was like the number of chapter tests, like all these tests. And I was like, 10? Are they kidding me? 10?
Right.
Especially a number of properties. Yeah, that.
Yeah, the number of properties chapter is a mountain that a few people everybody sees and go, oh boy, I have to climb that. Okay. Yeah. So I guess we kind of have to wrap up. I see a couple specific questions here, but you guys could maybe email me with these questions.
Yeah.
I could even, I could even confer with Dalal or something and maybe come back with some answers. But out of respect for everybody's time, we're going to wrap up now. It's been really great, Dalal. So I think everybody's gotten a lot of really, really key takeaways here. From the way you felt when you first started, to how you reacted to that, to how you saw the progress and how thorough you've been in all this stuff about just finally becoming confident.
Yeah.
That you can answer those, right?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I would love to answer anyone's questions. I'm more than happy to do that. I know that at that time when I first started, I wanted to reach out to anyone out there to just help me. So I'm more than happy to help. And I want to say, like, just one last thing is, when you're doing the GMAT, I think the best advice that I can give is, when you're doing the GMAT, please don't put a lot of pressure on yourself when it comes to the MBA application. I think one thing that you need to kind of realize is, we're not really good multitaskers. As much as we want to believe that we are, life's expectations and life responsibilities alone are a lot to handle, especially when you have a family and things like that. And then there's your job, right? And then there's like the GMAT, and then there's the MBA application. I think what I'm trying to say here is, like, when you're doing the GMAT, don't try to do other things with it and try to meet a deadline or try to meet whatever. Do the GMAT, take care of it, finish with the GMAT, and then after that, look at other things, because it can distract you, especially the pressure of having to meet a deadline. I need to finish the GMAT. It doesn't work that way, right? It really doesn't work that way. Or I have found, personally, that it doesn't work that way. I delayed my applications for another year because I was just like focused on the GMAT 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So just focus on it. You need to have patience with the GMAT. If you want a really high score, if you want a great school, if you want all of that, nothing comes easy. You need to have patience. You need to enjoy the journey and learn to like this test, or enjoy it at least, right? Enjoy the journey, and you need to have, just like consistency and trust the process, right? So remember, if something is working for you to be great, just do it repeatedly, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. So just find that hope, I guess. Find that hope inside of you.
Find that hope and find that method, put them together, make
Absolutely.
it happen.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it, y'all.
Marty, thank you so much. It was great.
Same to you. It's been a blast. Glad we could finally do this. A lot of people were requesting it. Appreciate it from GMAT Club as well.
Of course.
And y'all have a great rest of your Thursday or Friday or whatever it is for you now at this point.
Yeah, have a great weekend. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Take care.
Okay, bye.